here. So my name is Michael Berkshire, and I work in the Sustainable Development Division of the Department of Planning and Development. And tonight I'm going to talk about a policy and a new competition that helps support what Amy just talked about, and we hope that it impacts the way buildings are designed, constructed, and maintained in the long run. So the first policy that I'd like to talk about, which was mentioned by Katie earlier, is the city's Sustainable Development Policy. It's actually been around since 2004. That policy is very simple. If you're receiving financial assistance from the city, so if you're getting TIF financing, if you're buying a lot at a reduced price, if you're getting housing, financial incentives for affordable housing projects, all of those projects had to follow the requirements of this policy, as well as projects that needed special zoning approvals. So planned developments, which are large-scale developments that exceed either a certain height, number of units, or square footage. Those projects also have to follow the requirements. And earlier on in the policy, when it was first implemented in 2004, it was very prescriptive. So if you had one of those projects, you would have to place a green roof on your project and have the building be LEED certified. And now there was some variation in what was required depending on what type of project it was. Housing projects had different requirements from institutional or commercial or office buildings. But typically you had to build a green roof and have your building certified. There were a couple updates throughout the years. We added a few more building certifications that we acknowledged, but that was definitely, or that was pretty much it. And in terms of how well it's performed, we have been for the last 3 years, the state of Illinois has been a leader in the amount of LEED certified space. And also we have been in, I would say, the top 10 globally in the number of green roofs. The last investigation that we did or analysis was in 2013. We bought some satellite imagery to find out how many green roofs were actually constructed. And at that time we had 509 green roofs sprinkled all over the city, totaling about 5.6 million square feet. And there is an interactive map on the city's website, so if you wanted to see where all of those green roofs are, you can scroll around the map and there's actually addresses and a photo of the green roof on that website. So in 2016, we decided to update this policy. We had a couple of objectives. One was we wanted to reflect the changes in the market since 2004, which were pretty significant. Back in 2003, when I was working on the first policy, LEED was still a pretty nascent program back then. A lot of developers and architects didn't really understand what the implications were, especially financially, on projects. And really no one knew what a green roof was. And there were a lot of misconceptions back then that they would, cause fires, there would be rats and all kinds of rodents on the roof, etc. Yes? So,
prairie fire on my roof.
but that was a common concern. And also the level of expertise in the development, the design, engineering, is just exponentially improved since the 2004 too. So we have so many wonderful experts out there in the design, construction, and maintenance fields. And we also wanted to recognize innovation. With having it be more prescriptive, we didn't, and not allowing projects to actually choose what strategies they wanted to incorporate into their projects, there wasn't a lot of room for innovation and creativity. And that also allowed more, we wanted to allow more flexibility in meeting our requirements. And then the last one is that we felt the first one was solving some environmental issues, but we wanted to try and incorporate some more social and economical value in the development projects through this policy as well. So if any of you remember what the old policy looked like, does everyone, have they worked on projects that have had to follow that, or? Okay, so, and this is an illustration of the new policy. As Katie mentioned, at the beginning of 2016, we assembled this kick-ass group of experts in a variety of sustainability fields, and they worked with us for over a year in developing the policy. We had several drafts that we took out and presented to groups of developers, architects, attorneys that worked on a lot of their projects to get some both early feedback and then also some good comments at the end of the process as well. So as you can see, they worked throughout 2016. And I really appreciate all of the support and effort they put in that. And if you were on that committee, please raise your hand. There are quite a few in the room here tonight. So thank you again. Thank you. So this is a copy of the new policy, and it's really small. I know you hate that. I don't know why I put this up there because you can't see it. But this is, again, it's fairly simple. There are two compliance pathways. One is you can, if you're going to go for a certain level of building or type of building certification, you automatically get points up front. So, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. So for new construction projects, projects have to achieve 100 points. And for renovations, you have to achieve either 25 or 50, depending on how deep of a renovation it is. So what you see across in the columns those are the various strategies that we're providing points for. And so one compliance path is if you do choose to pursue a certain type or level of building certification, you automatically get so many points. So LEED Gold will give you 90, LEED Platinum 95. The one certification that will give you all 100 points is if you achieve the Living Building Challenge. The members of the committee felt that if you were achieving that, that's going to be about as sustainable as you can get right now. So you can see that there are some NAs throughout the spreadsheet here. That just means that if you are going to achieve one of those levels of certification, you can't also try and get points from one of the other strategies because it would be double dipping. So if you were achieving LEED Gold, you couldn't also get points for exceeding the building code by 10% because you're probably already doing that. So there are categories of strategies. We have strategies that involve energy efficiency. So if you exceed the levels of the performance required by our energy code, you're going to achieve so many points. We have stormwater. So again, we have a performance-driven stormwater ordinance. If you exceed those levels of performance, you're going to receive points. Landscapes. One particular one is tree planting. What we found is that trees in the public right-of-way only last between 10 to 12 years. So we want to extend the life of those trees. So we're providing points if you provide more soil volume when you're planting trees. We have still points associated with green roofs, our beloved green roofs, and indoor water use. And then we have quite a few associated with transportation. So these are some really interesting strategies, including if you provide more parking than the zoning code requires, if you build an electric vehicle charging station on your site, you'll get points. If you sponsor a divvy station, you'll receive points. Putting in a CTA digital display, etc. The next category is solid waste. We have a construction waste recycling and reduction goal of 50%, or it's an ordinance, excuse me. So we're going to give you, I believe it's 10 points if you divert more than 80% of your construction and demolition waste. The next one is associated with workforce. So if a certain percentage of your design and construction team comes from hard-to-employ groups, we're going to give you points. And the last two involve wildlife. So if you incorporate bird-friendly design elements, we're also going to give you points. And as you can see from these categories, we really looked at the context of sustainability in Chicago. What are some of the biggest issues in terms of sustainability in Chicago, which is stormwater management, energy efficiency, energy use in buildings, and bird deaths. We have over 100,000 bird collisions and deaths every year, and that's because Chicago is on a major bird migratory path. So the incorporation of some of those design elements is very important. So we've had this in place for 1 year, so I thought I'd go quickly over some of the results or what people have been choosing, what the projects have been choosing. This first slide just shows you what types of projects have actually filled out the form. So these are projects that have gone through, of the 33 responses, over 40% were residential projects, and nearly 30% were mixed use. Again, of the 33 responses, over 75% were new construction versus renovation. What types of projects? Over 66% were planned developments, and the next almost 20% were housing projects that were receiving money from the department. In terms of what types of certification they're achieving, 40% of the projects decided to take the compliance path where they're just choosing from all of the various strategies to gain their 100 points. And then the next two highest are LEED Gold and Silver are the choices that people are making. In terms of exceeding the energy code, of the 9 projects that did choose those particular strategies, over 50% are exceeding the energy code by 5%. Another 22% are exceeding the energy code by 40%, which I was very excited to see those results. In terms of stormwater reduction, 4 of the projects chose that, and it's 50-50. 2 are exceeding the stormwater ordinance by 25%, and 2 are exceeding the ordinance by, they're actually infiltrating 100% of their stormwater on site, which is, again, very exciting. And then of green roofs, over 60% are actually going to construct a green roof that covers anywhere from 50 to 100% of the roof. 8 projects choose that. 13 projects are going to conserve, well, of the 13 that chose water conservation, 84% are going to have fixtures that conserve 25% more, that conserve 25% more than the average fixture out there, or the baseline fixtures. And then in terms of transportation, of the 19 projects, we have quite a few that are close to a transit hub, so they automatically got some points. Again, 42% are supplying EV charging stations, so they're going to build a station on their project. Again, very exciting. And of the 22 that have chosen greater waste reduction, 80% of those are going to achieve at least 95%. And then of the bird-friendly design, we had 2 that are going to incorporate bird-friendly design. And the other thing that I wanted to introduce tonight, which we're very excited about, is that the City of Chicago is participating in the C40 Reinventing Cities competition. Is everyone aware of C40? It's a group of large cities around the globe. There are no longer 40. I think there are close to 90 right now. But they're all committed to climate change and reducing carbon emissions. And it's a really neat network of, again, larger communities that are sharing policies, plans, ordinances. And the first competition took place in Paris 2 years ago. And what's interesting about it is it's not just a design competition, it's actually a development competition. So the design of the buildings are going to be very important, but also the business plan for the development of these projects are also going to be important, because C40 wants these projects to actually happen. So the city is committing 2 projects. The first one, well, that's a little bit about how it works. That's actually the winner of the competition in Paris. And this is the timeline for the competition. So we're currently in the phase where we're asking for requests for qualifications. So we will take those RFQs, we will look at them, create a short list, and then we'll send out the actual RFP or the request for proposals to the short list. The RFQs are due on May 4th. And the first site is on Pershing Road. It's a set of historic buildings at 1717 through 1819 West Pershing Road. So this will be a rehabilitation of 2 historic large buildings that are part of a landmark designation or a historic designation on the south side. It's one of the first industrial corridors in the city. And the second one there are actually 2 vacant parcels in the East Garfield Park neighborhood. So this is Kedzie and this is 5th Avenue. Back up a little bit. It's just west or just east of Garfield Park. Again, it's 2 large parcels of city-owned vacant land. And here we're interested in multifamily affordable housing projects. And again, the objective here, and I forgot to mention this, and this is the most important part, is that we're asking these projects to be carbon neutral. So that's the main goal of the C40 competition. And this is just some sites in East Garfield Park. The grouping of parcels on the north side of 5th Avenue is 3/4 of an acre. And on the south side, it's nearly 3/4 of an acre too. And the proposals can either work with both parcels or just one. And there's a website, it's C40 Reinventing Cities.org, and there's a lot of information about each of the sites. Sorry, I'm just going through them very quickly tonight, but you can get a lot more information if you're interested. And we're also having a pre-bid meeting this Friday between 10:30 and noon at the Chicago Cultural Center. So there will actually be a representative from C40. She's flying in from Paris to be there, but we will be presenting in detail information about both of the sites. So I welcome all of you. We're really excited about this. This is going to be, the information is going to be distributed globally, so we're expecting to have proposals from all over the world, so we're really excited about it. So I hope many of you will participate.